What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Game Informer Show, a weekly podcast covering the video game industry. Join us every Thursday for a discussion about the latest gaming news, reviews, and exclusive reveals alongside Game Informer staff and special guests from around the industry. I'm your host, Alex Van Aken, and today I'm joined by the news hound, the once and future informer, Wesley LeBlanc. How you doing, Wes?
Doing good. Lots of rats in my life. Good ones though.
Oh, you should call somebody about that. Is it you guys got rats down in Florida? I thought it was just gators.
No, there's just rats everywhere, just hundreds and thousands.
Have you tried busting some saltpeter onto the ground?
Yes.
Okay. And you I don't know what to tell you. Maybe torch your house?
That's what we're gonna try tonight, I think, actually, yeah. My wife's not home, so I didn't want to do it without her. I feel like that wouldn't be very nice.
Yeah, you should probably run it by her before you set it on fire. Marcus Stewart, hello. How are you, Marcus?
Hi. As a fellow Floridian, I was just going to suggest maybe getting a cat. But if you want to go to that extreme, then I'm not here to tell you how to live. But
I have a cat, but she's like basically a dog. It's one of those cats that's really weird and doesn't do cat stuff.
Does she bark?
Sometimes.
Is she secretly a dog and you just haven't realized it until now?
Wait, what do cats look like?
Have you seen Blinks the Time Sweeper?
I have.
They're kind of similar to that.
Yeah, I played that game in the last year.
Oh,
why?
Yeah, why?
When I was streaming.
Oh, yeah.
Taking a hiatus, I decided I'd stream that game because I never had the original Xbox. I was like, oh, I'll try this. I've always been curious about it. That game sucks. So yeah. I don't recommend it.
I wouldn't either. As somebody who was very enthusiastic about Blinks the Time Sweeper when it first came out, I don't think that game is good. But past me, love that game. That and what was the robot vacuum one where you're like a yellow
Chibi Robo?
No. Original Xbox robot game.
DreamWorks' Robots, the game?
It was Metal Arms.
I was gonna say Metal Arms, yeah.
Yeah, Metal Arms glitch in the system.
That was on everything, though.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, I remember that was on GameCube, I know for sure. But I remember.
That's just like in my brain as like an OG Xbox game for some reason.
Yeah, that's a good game. Doesn't get enough love.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the show today. If you're listening to this when it goes up, I'm currently traveling to Japan. Actually, my trip's almost done by the time people listen to this, but we're pre-recording this episode. So we aren't going to be talking about, GTA 7 leaking or, Chris Pratt's Mario being replaced by AI voice generation. We're not doing no news stories this week because we don't know what's going to happen. But we are talking a lot about big games that are coming. Today we're going to be talking about A Plague Tale Requiem, Wes's review for that game. We're going to be talking about Marcus's time with Mario Rabbids so far. Again, we are recording this well into the future, or well in the past, so they might not have their full reviews, thoughts here today, but you can for sure go to GameInformer.com to check out their full, complete thoughts. And then might talk about a little bit of Overwatch 2. Right now, as we're recording this, it's still like in that launch phase where everything's a little busted. Which is a shame because the servers were, great in our pre-release, our review time. So it's a shame that nobody else has had a smooth experience like we did. But we're going to be talking about a little bit just Overwatch 2 in general. I'm really enjoying it. And then a couple questions, shorter episode, abbreviated episode, but still a lot of stuff jam-packed in here. Let's get started. We're going to jump right into the topic of the show this week. Wes, you have been playing A Plague Tale Requiem. Now, I know you aren't finished with it yet, but how are you enjoying it so far? Maybe give the listeners a primer. I feel like A Plague Tale Innocence was like a pretty big game, but it's also like it's not Call of Duty. It's not. Yeah. It's people might have heard the name, but maybe they don't know what it is. Could you kind of give a primer?
Yeah. So like the general idea of Plague Tale is you're living in the first one, it's like France, and then this one, you go to different places. But basically there's a plague and there's rats and like hundreds and thousands of rats. And it's a stealth game where you have to fight off guards and enemies and that kind of stuff, while also trying not to be completely overtaken by rats. And so the new game, Requiem, picks up shortly after Innocence. You're kind of, after the events of Innocence, you and your sister Hugo and his sister Amicia and his mother, they're trying to kind of just have a normal life, settle down in this really cute and quaint village with festivals, and it's all sunny and awesome. And they're kind of just trying to keep the plague, the macula, as it's called, within Hugo at bay. But they fail to do that, and things go a little haywire and force them to flee to a mysterious island that might have the cure to Hugo's ailment. And so I think I'm nearing the end. Like if I played another hour or two, I think I would be done with the game. There's 16 chapters and I'm on the 14th. So I know I'm nearing the end and I'm having a really good time with it so far. It's more Plague Tale. They have stepped up the amount of things you can do in terms of gameplay. It's still the same. You have a sling and you're throwing jars, that kind of thing. Like don't expect a drastic shift, but like they've added a lot of
kind of light and dark puzzle solving.
Yeah.
And the rats react to that light map.
Exactly. Yeah. Your entire goal is basically to like stay by fire pretty much, because if you're by fire, then rats can't get you. And then other than that, you're just taking down guards left and right with your headshot slingshot. I'm really enjoying it. The story is a lot better this time around, I think.
Okay.
Just because, and I liked Innocence a lot, but it's kind of a little simpler. It's less about like the overarching narrative and more about like what those characters are going through. And I think that Requiem handles both of those better. The characters are more well written, the stakes are higher, so you're seeing like new layers to them. And then the overarching narrative is really awesome. Lots of twists and turns, lots of characters, and like 10 times more grand in scale, which is pretty wild considering if you've played Innocence, the final boss fight is like a little wild.
Yeah.
But
it would be spoiler territory, but it goes places.
It does.
It's also very annoying.
Yes, it's a pretty bad boss fight. Bosses not necessarily better in this game. None of them have been as bad as the one in Innocence. But I'm still not really sold on boss fights needing to be in this game. And I think it's a little too long. It's probably twice the length of Innocence, depending on how quickly you played that game. And games should be as long as they need to be. I'm not saying this game is just too long because, it's 20 hours. That's way too long. It's just that there's a lot of time where I'm like, this feels kind of just like padding. Like, why am I doing this when I could just, for example, the marketing is all about going to this mysterious island to find Hugo's potential cure. You don't do that till like well over halfway through the game. And so the first half of the game is we got to get to this island. You're escaping from this place. Now you're hiding from these people all to get to a boat. And then finally, after probably 10 to 12 hours, I was on my way to the island. And I was like, oh, right? Because the whole game is like the marketing has been the trailers and stuff. It's like, we got to go to this mysterious island south and see if we can help Hugo. And it was especially...
Do you not feel like one of the... And I have not played the game, so for listeners, so Wes is the authority on this one. But one of the things I like about some stories, like Lord of the Rings, for instance, The Fellowship of the Ring, I felt like that half that film is them getting to Rivendell. And I feel like the stakes and the hiding, the secrecy, and the on the run adventure they're going on was like one of my favorite parts because of like the tension. Do you feel like it's effective in this game? Is there like do you feel like that tension of like they're going off on this big adventure and it's really dangerous, or is it more like, all right, let's get to the boat?
It's kind of a mixed bag. The first game is almost entirely like running away from bad people and trying to do this. And then this game, the first half of it is about the same length as the first game. And you're kind of just doing the same thing, which it got old kind of quick for me because, I'm 20 hours of Amicia and Hugo trying to escape bad people. And it's like, damn, I wish they would get, a break. But, it just felt long in some instances. You'd be escaping from these guards and these bad people, and then you have a moment to breathe. You're kind of walking. Some guards have shown up. They've reached this area. Oh, there's no guards here? Interesting. Oh, it's just rats. And you're kind of just doing that over and over until you get to the boat and finally get to this island, which does drastically change the way the game plays. Like, it's not immediately a threatening place, and you have time to like explore, and there's lots of happy moments, and it's sweet, and it almost has some some non-linearity in design too. Like you're doing things kind of in your own order, much more open than the rest of the game. And so that was like a welcome reprieve from what I had just played, which was the same thing, escape from guards, escape from rats, escape from guards, escape from rats, over and over. And that's kind of like my biggest problem with the game is, I shouldn't say the length, but just kind of the pacing, I guess. Like
Yeah. You kind of wanted them to get to the island sooner.
Yeah. And it's only because like I was, there's only so many times you can do a guard sequence and then a rat sequence before you're like, okay, this is kind of an old bag of tricks at this point.
Reminds me of Peter Jackson's King Kong, where like the first hour of that movie, like they don't get to the island until like hour 2.
Yeah.
What I remember of that movie. So
yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah.
I really have 2 big questions. The first one is the combat. Amicia has like a crossbow now, and at least from the trailers, it looked like they were trying to add a little bit more action to it and not let it just be entirely sort of stealth or just like the slingshot stuff. How is that crossbow? And like, is it as like, how much more action or like full on action is there, or does the crossbow allow that, or how is that?
So the crossbow, it's very much still a stealth heavy game. Like you're still going to try to do stealth first. And then if it fails and things go chaotic, you might be in a more combative state. But yeah, the crossbow, like when you first get it, can hold 1 or 2 arrows and you can upgrade it. I'm holding 3 arrows at a time right now. And I really don't use those unless I have to. Like if somebody has got the jump on me, or it's an especially big guard that I can't just immediately take out with the slingshot headshot, I'll use the bow on them. But it's not like there's no sequences at all where you feel like you're the most powerful figure on the field.
Yeah. You're not mowing people down with this crossbow.
No, not at all. No, yeah. You're just definitely still stealthing. And the game has a cool system. You get skills in the game, and there's 3 types of skills you can get, but you don't choose them or anything. They just advance based on your actions. So if you're playing stealthier, your stealth skills are going to upgrade quicker. And if you play a bit more combative, you'll see some like slingshot related stuff or action skills. And then there's another one that I'm blanking on right now. But yeah, I found the game to be like a stealth game in that I stealth really hard, do my best, and sometimes I mess up, and then it's just like, all right, heads are rolling.
Okay. And my other big question is hearing you talk about the story and that you find it to be better than the first game. That's exciting to me because my favorite thing about the first game is the story. It was my favorite game narrative of 2019.
Oh, wow.
It says a lot to me because that's the same year that Control came out, and I love that game's story. But one of the things that put it over the edge was not even just Amicia and Hugo's relationship, but there's a supporting cast of characters that you meet along the way in that game, and like the interactions with them and the time you spend with those characters. I won't say who they are in case people haven't played the first game, but that was the thing that really made that game feel special. Like I love that stuff. How is the supporting cast in this game by comparison? Have you met some interesting characters, or even like how are Amicia and Hugo in this game, I guess, like compared to the first game?
Yeah, so I'll tackle that part first. Amicia and Hugo, basically Hugo's condition is not cured. Like it's getting worse, and Amicia really, really loves Hugo. It's her brother. And so the tensions are much higher. Like things are more dire. Hugo's kind of in a state where he's like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I just want to be a normal kid. And Amicia's like, I know, and it's breaking her heart, but you have to keep doing this plight that they're on, because she thinks she knows at the end we're going to get Hugo cured into a place where he can be normal. But until then, they're going to suffer as a family, like trying to get there. And so like much more tense, lots of more heartfelt moments in that regard. And then as far as the supporting cast goes, I really like it. There's one character in particular who I think is really great, and they've been the longest supporting cast person in this game so far. Like I've stuck with them the longest, which is awesome because they're my favorite. And there's others too. So if that's a big part of Innocence for you, like I think you're gonna really like this group too.
Word. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I feel like these games are so hard to talk about just because, like Marcus said, for me, the first game, all I cared about was the story. I mean, like the rat mechanic was cool, but like it was in a certain way like a means to an end. Like the moments that happen in that game and the way that you are interacting with the rats are very cool from like a setting perspective. Like, oh, we're doing this in like a really interesting place, right? I would have never expected to be doing this at like in a barn, right, with like an alchemy lab underneath. Like all of those like cool locations. I really enjoyed the puzzles in that regard, kind of like, navigating these spaces in a non-traditional way. But the thing that was keeping me going was the story, right?
Yeah, I would ask, speaking like kind of piggybacking off that, Alex, is how's the like just the tech? Because I think one of the coolest things of Innocence was like the rat tech, like seeing that swarm and like the way it would just flood into rooms. I thought that looked cool.
Yeah.
And this is a current gen only game, so they don't have last gen consoles to hold it back. How has that improved, I guess, in that game?
So for me, I haven't played Innocence in a minute, like I guess a couple of years. And like the rats and their technology doesn't immediately stand out as like better necessarily. I'm sure if I went and watched like some of Innocence, I'd be like, oh yeah, the Requiem rat stuff is way crazier. But like kind of like in Innocence for me, the rats are just there and they're cool and they make for cool moments, but I'm not like necessarily impressed by what the rats are doing. Like after the first couple times when I see, thousands of rats on screens, I'm just kind of like, eh. And like the game is still, it's gorgeous, looks amazing, runs a little sometimes. So hopefully that gets patched out in the future. But like it still has a little bit of like the AA edge, which is fine. Like it's not a massive AAA game with hundreds of millions of dollars behind it. And I desperately wish that it was, because it has like all it wants to be. Like it's doing everything that an awesome AAA game is. And I think like with some more money, the rat stuff could be like truly wild. But a lot of times when I see the rats from a distance, it's great, but then up close, you're just like, oh, that's like a bunch of little kind of like black masses moving. Yeah. Like you're not like gonna get hyper realistic rats. It's still awesome to see, but yeah, this isn't like the wildest looking game. And again, I'm sure if I went back, go ahead.
So you're not gonna see the sweat coming out of every individual. This isn't like Madden rats.
Precisely.
Every pore.
Yeah. But like it's truly gorgeous. I have so many screenshots on my PS5, and they do a lot of cool things with I guess like colors and stuff. Like they use a lot of unique hues and stuff like that, almost like in a painterly way. A lot of times I'm like, oh, this kind of looks like an old painting, maybe from that time period, I guess, like medieval.
Nice art direction.
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of the one of the weird little charms about Plague Tale, and is that it is double eggs, like that barely exist anymore. And there's something about like seeing a game that's like, I guess technically like Hellblade was that too, even though that game's tech was like unreal. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's like a weird like intangible. Like it's. I just like that these kind of games exist. I feel like because this is a Focus Entertainment published game, I feel like they're kind of like firmly in that AA camp, and like I appreciate that tier of studios still exists more and more as they kind of like slowly either close or just get absorbed by some new acquisition. So yeah, I'm glad that these, like, you can still do smaller ish projects like this. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I just I like that AA games are still a thing.
No, I mean it's really cool to see. Like this is their I haven't beat the game, so I don't know if there's gonna be more Plague Tale, but like if this was the final Plague Tale game, I wouldn't be surprised, just because of like how like epic and grand it is in scale, which as a AA game is like very impressive to me.
It feels like you got to do the Plague Tale at some point where you just play as Hugo the whole game, right?
Yeah, you would.
Like,
you would think
he becomes like older and he just like has mastered his rat powers, and then you just like throw rats at people, basically.
Yeah.
The Miles Morales to the Spider-Man
Amicia
pipeline.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying.
So yeah, that is a Plague Tale Requiem. Wes, any final closing thoughts before we move on to talk about Mario Rabbids?
Yeah, if you liked Innocence, you should absolutely play this, and if you like stealth games, definitely check it out. It's a good time.
Awesome. I'm very excited to play this game. It's going to be, unfortunately, a few weeks for me just because of all the other games that are coming out that we have to cover. But this is one that I am definitely going to be playing myself, hopefully sooner rather than later. So let's get into the playlist. Marcus, you have been playing Mario Rabbids a bit. I know you are you're not done with the game yet by any means. But tell us about Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, how you're liking it.
Yeah, I'm liking it quite a bit. So I was a big fan of Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
Me too.
Dropped in 2017. I think that surprised basically everyone how good that thing was. And it also feels weird that game was 5 years ago, because I don't know if you guys, but it does not feel like it's that old.
I still remember like the E3 when it got announced and everything.
Yeah, but that was the same year that the Switch launch was Kingdom Battle.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right. The hell of a first year for the Switch. But yeah, I'd say so far, I'm as we're recording this, I am still kind of early. Like I haven't even unlocked Bowser or Rapid Rosalina yet. I'm like towards the end of the second world, but I think that so far it is better than the first game in most every way right now. So one of the big changes with this game is that they've done away with grid-based movement. They're like, get these tiles out of here. What if you could just run around like a normal video game character? And that's what I think that change works. So the game is still turn-based. It's still a turn-based strategy game. But now every character you can freely just move them around the battlefield within their given radius. But it feels nice to just like walk around like just regular Mario. Just like, I'm just going to duck over here and, just hang out. Maybe I'll jump on my friend's head to get a boost glide to go further, which is another cool thing you can do. Maybe I'll slide into an enemy to get some damage. But other than that, I'm just going to move around all willy-nilly. And the only time you are restricted from moving is like if you declare an attack. Once you attack, you're pretty much done for the turn.
Okay, yeah. I was curious how they were going to mix the real time with the turn base. That's always kind of been my one concern with this game, because I really liked Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle as well. I guess my brain is having trouble picturing real-time movement in a turn-based game, you know what I mean? But yeah. So if you can essentially do that until you commit to your action for attacking, right?
Yeah, and I think also that you still are restricted by a character's like range. It still gives the general vibe of having a grid, like, even though it's not laid out like a grid, it's like, here's your weird outline of how far you can move. Wherever you can, anywhere within that boundary, you can go wherever you want. And so, the game, like the first game, is finding ways to manipulate that of like, okay, maybe I can find a way to go further. Usually, like I said, jumping off somebody's head and getting like the boost glide where you can, either reach a higher elevation or just move further down the playing field. But because the game is, it has real-time elements, it makes the battles feel more dynamic because the stages and the enemies also have like some real-time behavior. So
okay.
When it's your turn, they still won't do anything to you. They're still waiting their turn. But like bombs, for example, like, you can slide into a bomb and flip it on its head and then it'll set off its fuse. And even though it's your turn, it's counting down in real time. Like it's gonna blow up and, you'll get
cool.
You'll get hit if you're in its radius, but you can pick it up and throw it into a group of enemies. But because it's still counting down in real time, there's that like traditional Mario sort of like tension of like, okay, I got to run this over here as fast as I can so I can like take out this group of enemies. And there was one cool stage where it was like on a kind of a snow-capped mountain, and there were these mountain heads blowing like gusts of wind, periodically. And the idea is like, okay, if you get caught in the wind, it's going to push you back a few spaces. So,
it's sounding more like this is close. Like there's some cool platforming elements. Like not platform. Sorry, like almost like a Captain Toad style. Like these gusts of wind in particular sound just way different from like what you'd find in a normal strategy game. So I know you're not like platform. I don't know how to talk about this game. You're not platforming, but there's like this action to it that sounds fresh.
It's more dynamic.
Yeah.
There's a lot more dynamic elements because like the wind stuff, I feel like if you put that in a traditional like maybe grid-based turn-based game, it would operate on a counter, or like if I move this many spaces, it's gonna go off on the third space, so I need to make sure I'm behind something. Whereas like in this game, it's on real time, so you're like you could just run around and just wait for it the way you would in a regular video game. Like, okay, it's gonna stop blowing now, I'm gonna make my move and go over here, and then I'll be good, in the clear. It's funny you mentioned Captain Toad because there are some like hidden stages that are very Captain Toad-esque, like some bonus stages that have the sort of diorama vertical thing where you're exploring it, and it's not platforming, but you're doing just more sort of like running around avoiding enemies if you can, and just like bringing a key to a lock to get like a special item.
Yeah, like light puzzles.
Yeah, rotating the camera so you can keep your party in view, because it's like, again, you're like on basically a cube thing. But yeah,
we need more games like Captain Toad. Just like side note,
we need just Captain Toad too. That would be even better.
That'd be great, man.
Yeah, I love that game. And the other big thing with Sparks of Hope is in the name, the Sparks. So the Sparks are combinations of Lumas from Mario Galaxy and Rabbids. And what they are is that you equip them to a party member, and each of them bestows a special ability. Some of them are elemental, where it's like, okay, this is a fire spark. So if Mario, if you activate it, Mario's attacks now have fire damage to them. Other ones are more like general, of like, I have one that's like, I guess like a screaming spark. Like he has a megaphone, and when you use it, he just like yells, and it makes everyone around you run away from you because they just can't take the noise. So that's like good for like disrupting enemy formations, or if you find yourself kind of boxed in, you can like, okay, I'm about to get hit, I'm going to use this, and now they're just going to run, somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so I love the strategy that it adds, because like I find myself in the beginning of each match, taking the time to scan the field. You can look over each enemy and say like, okay, what are they weak to? This guy's weak to water damage. This one's weak to like poison. So I'm going to go in and equip the appropriate sparks to them. And, so it just gives you more options for the playing field. And then also, since you can equip 2 at a time, you can really make each character feel pretty powerful. So, like, okay, this field, most of the enemies are weak in the fire and splash. I have one of each. I'm going to equip one of each to Mario, where like he can shoot fire, but I can put splash damage on his slide, because these spark abilities operate on a cooldown. So even if you use them during a turn, you got to wait like another maybe turn or 2 before you can use it again. So you still have to kind of be choosy of like, do I want to wipe this guy out immediately, or maybe save it for like a bigger guy or whatever. And, that combined with the fact that the team composition is open now. If you guys remember in the first game, you always had to have at least one Nintendo character and one Rabbid at all times. And that was kind of limiting in terms of like what your makeup could be. Now you can have whatever you want, which is so much better, to the point where I'm constantly asking myself how we like put up with that in the first game, because it's just more fun to just have that freedom to say like, yeah, you know what? Based on what I'm looking at on the playing field, I think it'd be better if I had Luigi, Mario, and Peach, or, all Rabbids, or any combination of the bunch. So like, I just think it just feels more fun and flexible, and just having more options, and then also just more strategic because of like that, combined with like mixing up your spark abilities to, deal with whatever like enemy lineup you're facing. The other big thing is that they've opened up exploration exponentially. So, the first game had that really cool like overworld you were exploring.
Yeah.
You really couldn't do too much outside of move to like the next fight. Where in this one, they're like actual levels pretty much. So you're running around, you're finding like, there are side quests that you can do to, not only earn extra XP, but you're earning coins as well as star bits, which you feed to your sparks to make them stronger, much like in Mario Galaxy. They're just like chomping down on those things, and then you can make the sparks that you enjoy using even better. You also got these like planet coins, which unlock sort of like special items like weapon skins, and like these special keys that unlock a secret area that each planet has that you really got to go out of your way to try to find. And then there's even like some like Metroid style progression where Beepo, your little like Roomba robot guy that floats with you, he gets abilities as you go out the game. So like right now he has one for me where he kind of like does the sonic blast that can break through like cracked rock walls, and it can also make pillars move. So the idea is that you'll go into a stage and you'll see all these things and be like, okay, I don't have the thing for that right now, but in a few hours I will. So I'll come back to this world and clean up and see what I can find here. But it just makes exploration just feel so much more rewarding and interesting, because there's different routes that go everywhere. You have your critical path, of course, but if you want to go off the beaten path and go like, oh, there's like a weird little temple over there. What's that? Like right now, as we speak, I'm in the middle of a optional dungeon that I just happened to find behind like a cracked wall. And it's
how big is, like, how involved is that sort of dungeon? Like, does it just feel like a little small dungeon that you'd walk in like Elden Ring, for instance, where it's like a few rooms and you might walk away with, new gun skin or something? Or is it more involved?
At least the ones that I've seen, yeah, it's probably closer to that. Like, they're not like super huge. Like, some of them have like maybe one environmental puzzle that you need to solve, or like cool. A navigation puzzle. Like, okay, the things on the other end of this room rearrange some things to figure out how to get over there or something like that. There are a lot more traditional puzzles. There was one where it was like, okay, rotate these statues based on a bunch of murals that are in the area and kind of decipher based on the pictures how these statues should be arranged. We saw in the trailer there was like that constellation one where you're creating constellations on a star chart. I haven't done that one yet myself. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot more like, I guess, traditional adventure game stuff that is like a nice break from just the turn-based strategy battles. So yeah, I think it's super cool. Yeah, overall, I think, I have a lot of game left to play, but I'm very impressed, and it's getting better and better as they layer on more, systems. And, like I said, I still have 2 more characters to unlock, so I'm excited to see, what they bring to the table, because I'm pretty happy with the party that I have right now.
That's exciting.
Do you think the combat, because it's kind of weird for like a sequel to do such a big drastic change in the combat. I guess it's not drastic, but I know, like, I've played a little bit of Kingdom Battle. I've always been wanting to get back to it, but the people that I know who like it, they're like, it is Rabbids, but don't worry about them. Like, the combat is really awesome. It's a great combat system. And then they've changed that in this game. And I wonder if, like, does it feel like an improvement or justified for what they're trying to do with this, or like they just wanted a different combat system and they just made one?
I think so. I mean, the combat still, I think, like, the core of the combat remains the same. Like, the Rabbids, or like the existing characters, still remain the same in terms of like what they bring to the table. Luigi is still the long range sniper. Mario's still the all-rounder. Rabbid Peach is still the healer of the team. They have a few abilities here and there, but their roles are pretty much the same. And, like, I think the moment-to-moment stuff in terms of like how you execute your strategies, like, if you had fun with how Kingdom Battle handled that, you'll enjoy Sparks of Hope. It just feels more dynamic because you can just move around just more freely, and I think it'll allow you to set up things more easily. And, also if you're like because the thing about Kingdom Battle is that it got a lot of people that don't normally play these games into turn-based strategy. And I think this is like the next step of like widening that net more, because if you just look at gameplay, you understand what to do. Of like, oh yeah, you just walk around and I'm gonna hide behind that pillar so I don't get hit. Whereas like I think there's still something about looking at a grid that just makes games look more complicated than they might actually be, even if it's something like Mario. So I think it's like, if anything, it's like a smart means to an end of like easing in those people and be like, no, it's cool. It's not that complicated, So we'll take this scary looking grid away. But then once you play it, and especially if you played the first game, you'll fall back into like, oh, okay, it's still this. It's just got, it's just got a different coat of paint on, and I think I like it better so far. Now, that's not to say that the game's still not challenging, because I think what surprised a lot of people is that Kingdom Battle got pretty tough towards like it's not like baby time strategy game. It is if you're a turn-based tactics fan, that game has enough bite to, like, you are going to be, if you do not play strategically, you will get wiped out. If you are not thoughtful about how you put your team together, if you're not mindful of what is on the field and how to maximize your advantages, you will get decimated. And even in the second world, I've already had battles where it's like, okay, I'm getting some pushback here. Like, I can't just steamroll these guys. I need to outthink them. So, I think it still has that element of it. I can only assume it'll only continue to get challenging as you go on. The game also, communicates, every enemy that you run into has a level. So exactly if you're like ready to face them, right? You'll see like level 10. And if it's like red and you're like level 7, you're like, you might have a hard time. So maybe stay away from that guy.
Is it like a transition screen? Like when you hit an enemy, almost like Pokemon, where it's like something happens and boom, now you're in a battle arena? Or is it kind of like a seamless, we're in battle now?
There's a transition, like it loads and then it's like,
okay,
here's the combat screen. But it's not random encounters. Like you see every enemy out there. Like I said, you can see their levels, so you know exactly like I'm gonna stay away from that guy.
Gotcha.
What's also cool is that you can slide into enemies and hit them, so you'll get like a bit of an advantage at the start of the fight. So if you sneak up on them, you can get like a little extra hit, but they can do the same to you too. So you know if they see you and they'll chase you, if they hit you first, they'll get that advantage.
That's cool. I like that.
But yeah, so far I'm pretty happy with it. I've fallen into a rhythm with it. Like I said, the combat's pretty fun so far. It's only getting better as I get more sparks, and it seems like there's a lot of sparks in the game based on just some certain side quests that sort of gate you based on how many sparks you have, and I'll see a number and go like, oh, I do not have that many yet. Okay. And you know, like I said, we combine that with just the more interesting exploration and having more things to do outside of just battle after battle after battle. I think it just makes it feel like a more complete package this time around. So we'll see how it goes, but right now, pretty positive on it.
Awesome. I'm really excited to play it. This is I've been looking forward to this one for a while now. But let's get into Overwatch 2 for a minute. We are.
Can we get into Overwatch 2?
I can. Depending on the day and time. So when I have been able to get into Overwatch 2, man, I've really been enjoying it. It's been my daily game, my daily driver since it released, and even weeks before it released. I'm just back into the competitive grind. Just enjoy. I spend most of my nights playing with we might not all be together, in a game together, but we'll just be on a Discord chilling, sharing our screens and playing Overwatch. And I find that I'm still looking for just because there's been some shakeups and stuff with the meta and the characters themselves, where my traditional mains are less and less my mains in Overwatch 2. I think Roadhog is really the only character that I mained in Overwatch 1 that I still am doing that in Overwatch 2. Just because there are new options now, and I'm curious about getting better at certain characters. One thing I really like about Overwatch 2 in terms of its competitive changes is your competition ranking, your competitive ranking is filtered by, you have 3 different rankings. You have your tank competitive ranking, your damage, and your support. So, if for some reason you feel okay, well, I'm kind of slotted into this support because maybe I've got a challenge I want to do, or the queue times are just more favorable for support players right now, but I'm not as knowledgeable on support as I am on tank, right? Well, now I have separate ratings where I can kind of work on different aspects of my play style. If I want to explore improving as a support, I don't have to worry about my tank rating getting messed up, which is really cool because there are titles and other rewards that are tied to ranked play. In the past you got exclusive icons or the gold guns, so it's nice. And also just personal motivation. I'm somebody who really wants to try to see how far I can climb, right? And it was always a struggle of, well, I'm playing with my friend, we're playing competitive together, they're kind of playing the character I was gonna play, so I guess I'll hop over here and play this character, but I'm not as good as them. It's nice now that we have those individual rankings. I really, really like that change. And I think it's going to compel me to experiment with different characters in the long term, and just see if I can master them, right? See if I can get good at them and see how my Zenyatta, or my support rather, compares to my friend's support play. And I think that'll be really cool. But content-wise, man, I'm just loving Overwatch 2. I think I understand the critiques. I totally understand the critiques of, this feeling like almost an expansion rather than a full-on sequel. People are calling it Overwatch 1.5, which I definitely understand.
I heard because I have yet to fire up Overwatch 2, at least at the time of we're recording. I remember even hearing that they didn't even change the opening cinematic. That was still there. Yeah. And I remember being really? Even that hasn't been changed yet?
Yeah, because that's tied to that is weird. I haven't seen the cinematic actually yet, so that is news to me.
Yeah, it's the one where he's tapping on the camera and then It's the same one. I thought when I first booted up that I had accidentally booted up Overwatch somehow, even though that's not possible anymore because it started the
my
way.
PC version doesn't boot into the cinematic.
Oh,
it just boots the menu screen. Yeah.
I wonder if that's a bug. I feel like you can't question anything at this point.
Well, even like in Overwatch 1, I never booted to. Must be a PC thing. Maybe it's hidden in the menus.
I think it just does it on the. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it just does it on the first time because on PlayStation I did not see it, but I have Overwatch 2 on my PC and I've never done that before.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. I would say, how do you feel about the progression now that you've put like a decent amount of time into it? Like, do you feel like you're earning things at a like acceptable rate, or and
let me see where I'm at. I can tell you my level. Let me pull it up.
Yeah,
I'll tell you my level.
Brag to us about your level, please.
Yeah, and I'll tell you because I honestly haven't really been paying attention too much. It's kind of like just like a back of my mind thing where it's like, oh, okay, cool, like I got this now. I'm just kind of enjoying playing the game, but I'm loading it up right now to see where I'm at. But I mean, it seems fairly standard compared to, definitely not as quick as a game like Fortnite.
No, like not at all.
You get like 3 or 4 levels every session. I wouldn't say it's like come across as slow to me. I can tell you, let's see, Battle Pass. Here I go. I'm logged in.
It feels a lot more dependent on how well you do perform and winning a match. Like if I have a pretty bad match, which I've had some pretty bad ones, like my Battle Pass barely goes up. But then another time I'll win a match and I'll have like 19 kills or something like that and a ton of healing or whatever. And I'll go up like 2/3 of a level in one match. Sometimes.
Yeah. So I'm level 31. 10 of those levels were from pre-release. So I've gone up, about 20 levels post-release, playing it typically once a day, at least for a couple of matches. I definitely, certain days I might just play one match or two, but I feel like it's going at a decent clip compared to what I'm used to. I could see people wanting it to maybe go a little faster, but you bringing it up is the first time I've thought about it outside of the review period.
Okay. Sorry I ruined the game for you then.
No, you're fine. You're fine now. I'm going to be so unsatisfied now. But man, I love the new push mode map. I've been thinking a lot about it, and I feel like push mode is the most easy to understand. It's almost like football, right? Like think of the robot, the push robot as the football that's going back and forth between the two teams. And I feel like that mode in particular is going to become the new like marquee mode in terms of like esports and like spectating, because it is so simple to understand. It's like, okay, there's 2 goalposts, and whoever gets to the enemy's goalpost first wins, or in case of the time running out, whoever got it furthest or closest wins. And I really like all of the maps as well on that new mode. I think they're all really well designed. When I was talking to the developers, they described them as being like Swiss cheese, where the robot is kind of going in these curved motion, like these. Whoever designed these cities in Overwatch, the Overwatch city planner, not a great job because there's so many curves and twists. But players can get back to the action quickly because there's like these little holes in the path, right? These shortcuts, and it's just like it's a really fun mode. I'm loving the maps, and like even apart from their design, I just really like the themes of them. The like Coliseo or the Coliseum one's really cool.
New York's
I really like
awesome.
Canada. New York's Midtown. I mean, they're just like some of the best Overwatch maps I think that have been designed. And I think I'd be harsher on the game if the new content, because if you think about it, like it's not a ton compared to Overwatch 1, but it's everything that's there, in my opinion, is really good. I think if that wasn't the case, I would be feeling a little more frustrated. But every new addition to the game really does feel, outside of like the weird phone authentication. So I'm talking about gameplay, right? Gameplay and characters. I think every addition to Overwatch 2 and every change is really great. And I think the game is the best it's been in years. Too early to compare it to like, there's a lot of nostalgia tied up into the launch of Overwatch 1 for me. And it's hard to like assess this many years later to compare the two. But in terms of like design, gameplay design, I feel like Overwatch 2 is much more balanced than Overwatch 1 was at launch, and therefore in that regard is a better game. So in that regard, I think Overwatch is the best it's been. There are other parts, not so much, but it's kind of a weird game to talk about, especially when like some people can't play the game for a number of hiccups. The launch has been terrible. It's kind of sucks because I think the game itself is really good. But the launch has just been atrocious.
I mean, that's why I haven't logged in yet. Like, honestly, you like the Overwatch group that I guess we're all a part of. Like, you guys have been my barometer for like, should I jump in? Because I'll see the messages of like, all right, I'm playing, guys, and then in a queue for 20 minutes, and I'm waiting for the day where I see none of that. Like, I'm waiting until I can just jump in.
Are you in our Overwatch Discord by chance?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that I'll see those pop off like every night now, and then be like, oh, is it good now? And then I'll still see like a little bit of hiccups here, and I'm like, nope.
I haven't had any queue issues in the last, apart from the other day where I couldn't even boot it up. I haven't had any queues. When it works great. There's no waiting. So if you see the people are playing, it typically means now you can just jump in and play.
Yeah.
It's when the servers are having issues that it's frustrating.
Yeah, I guess because I do like Overwatch, but I guess I'm not as big a fan, so I can wait. And I'm like, there are plenty of other games that I'll play in the meantime, so I don't need to like potentially be frustrated. Like, because then I'm afraid I'm going to be like, yeah, Overwatch 2, and then boot it up and hit that wall, and then all my momentum will just evaporate. It's like, well, guess I'll play something else now. So like, let me know when they've got this worked out, and I'll be right in there.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're getting close. They've pushed several big patches through the last week or so, and the game's been much more stable.
Yeah, and maybe it is by the time you're listening to this.
Oh, yeah, true, yeah. Like, people are listening to this a week after we're recording this, so it might be smooth sailing by then.
We could be playing right now.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah,
True.
I mean, I am going to bring my Xbox to Japan. Because I gotta progress that battle pass, baby. I gotta do it. But yeah, so that's kind of Overwatch 2. Let's get into listener questions real quick. We got time for 2, maybe just 1 actually. And by the way, if you want to submit a question, podcast@gameinformer.com or join our official Discord by subscribing to us on Twitch. Jdunkadonk asks, I've played a bunch of single player games lately, and I keep getting to the point where the game feels bloated or has too much filler, even if they are good or great games. What games do you think are the most complete? Doesn't have to be the best games. So I think it seems like their main problem is too much bloat. They want something that's more trimmed, I guess, but feels cohesive and has good pacing. That's how I'm reading this question.
Sounds like they're playing a lot of open world games too.
Yeah,
I imagine.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess step 1 is maybe play something a little more linear. Unless the question is like an open world game that is less bloaty, or at least the side quests respect your time better. But I guess in terms of like what is the best one of those in terms of just like pacing and getting to the point, I mean, there's so many to choose from. I'm thinking like, I thought of like maybe Control, now that I mentioned it before, because that's all in one setting, and I think that game remains compelling from pretty much consistently, throughout. And there really aren't, I mean, there's some side stuff, but like it's not an open world game by any stretch of the imagination. And I think some of the side activities are actually pretty rewarding in terms of like just the lore that you get. 'Cause I think the lore is the most interesting thing in Control. Like, I adored hunting down those documents and getting anything I could read about like what is going on in that world. I was down for. So I guess off the top of my head, that
for me, I feel like shooters, like I'm thinking like Doom Eternal, the Wolfenstein games, Metal Hellsinger, which I just reviewed a few weeks ago. I feel like that genre, like the very fast-paced first-person shooter, is really good about not having bloat. If you don't like first-person shooters, though, that's its own problem. But like those, especially the Wolfenstein, like Wolfenstein 2, that game is balls to the walls the entire time, and it's a blast. So maybe check those out.
I would say some quick recommendations from me. A Short Hike. That is one of my favorite games of all time. It came out in, I think, 2019. It is 3 to 4 hours long. You can get it for like $7 or less.
Yeah, if even that.
Yeah, and I always describe that game as like a tiny open world. There's a lot to explore and a lot of secrets and stuff, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a very small game, but it makes you feel like you're a part of this big open area. It's really cool. Almost reminds me of like a giant Mario Odyssey level that you can kind of explore and collect things and that kind of thing, and kind of plays into the larger story. Undertale, if you haven't played the Undertale game, I wouldn't jump at a Deltarune quite yet. Play Undertale if you're interested in like a 2D RPG. I'm trying to think of like the classics that somebody may or may not have played before.
Kingdom Hearts series.
If you like the what?
Kingdom Hearts. All those games.
No, God, no.
Never known for bloat.
I think a lot of puzzle games are like story-based puzzle games are really good in that regard. Like
Portal.
Even if you've played Portal, play Cube 2 in particular is one of my favorite games. It's QUBE. I platinumed that game. I've only platinumed 5 games before.
Yeah. I've always wanted to play that because of how Portal-y it looks.
It's so good.
I know I have it on something.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite puzzle games. Yeah, I don't know.
They the recent Resident Evils are pretty straightforward. I think those games are paced pretty well. Like Village is not a long game. Village is like 8 hours. Yeah. So that's a good one. But even like the remakes of 2 and 3 or Village 2, I think if you're into horror, those are some good picks.
Definitely. Well, cool. Well, we're gonna end it there. I think Wes has another podcast to jump on real quick. We're busy boys this week, talking on all the shows. So thank you all for listening. If you did enjoy the show, be sure to go and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or rate us on Spotify if you listen there. Share us with a friend, and follow us this week on Twitter. You can follow Wes at LeBlanc Wes, LEBLANCWES. You can follow Marcus at Marcus Stewart 7. And you can follow me at It's Van Aken. That's going to do it for the show this week. We will see you next week. I will be back from Japan then. It'll be more of a normal episode, I'm sure. Oh, we should definitely we got some new hires on the team. And we need to introduce them and talk to them. So I think that'll be on the agenda for next week. So if you have any questions for them or about their work or their favorite games, that'd be a great thing to ask us in the Discord. All right, y'all. Have a good one. Goodbye.
Bye.